Today, Westcott just released their new FJ-T1 trigger, and in this video, I'm going to give you a full rundown of all of its features, as well as some comparisons between it and its big brother, the FJ-X3 trigger. So, let's get started. First things first, in true Westcott fashion, you can see that I have the multi-brand version of the trigger. So just like with their other triggers and on-camera flashes, there's a multi-brand version and a version specific for Sony. So as we open the box, take a look inside, you can see that we have the case with the FJ-T1 trigger, as well as the sync cable for charging and of course for firmware updates. And as we take a look inside this carrying pouch, you can see that we have the unit itself. Now this unit is similar in size to the Godox X3 trigger, which is extremely small as well, except for Godox opted for a square design and Westcott has a round design. To start, if we look at the exterior of the unit, you can see that we have our power button, our test button for the flash, the crown, which will allow us to scroll through different settings as well as confirm different settings when you push it in. We have our charging port here on the side, USB-C, and the quick release button to remove it from our hot shoe. So as we turn the unit on, we get that blue power button just like with the FJ400 Mark IIs and FJ800. We press that and it opens up to a full color display. Starting on the top left, we have our mode button, which will allow us to change the different settings on each one of our groups. So manual mode, sleep mode, and TTL. Then on the top right, we have our sync button, which if we press this, it'll cycle through front curtain sync, rear curtain sync, and high speed sync. There in the middle, we have our battery indicator to let us know just how much power we have left for its internal battery. The top in the center, we have which channel we're on, which we can change that to whatever we want, as this unit has up to 31 channels for us to choose from. And then here in the middle, you can see that we have our colored groupings, which there are 16 groupings for us to choose from. Now here at the bottom, you can see that we have a couple plus and minus buttons. This will allow us to be able to increase our power or decrease our power as we see fit, which we can also do by using the crown on the side of the unit as well. Also within our groups, if you look over here to the right of each of the groups, you can see that there's a little light bulb icon. And if we click that, this will enable us to be able to turn on our modeling light for whichever one of our units is tied to that particular group. And if we press it one more time, you can see that now it has an A on the inside, which basically just means that it's the automatic function for that modeling light. Now again, because this unit is completely touchscreen, you can see that we can cycle through the different channels as we did here a few moments ago, but then you can scroll through the different channels using the crown on the right side of the unit. When you do so, be sure that you don't have the power selected, because if the power on that channel is green, when you scroll, it will change the power on the unit instead of allowing you to scroll through the different groups. So we talked about this mode button a few minutes ago, but I didn't get an opportunity to go in detail. So if we select the unit itself, we know that it's selected because it has the thicker line around it. Now, if we click mode, you can see that we go into sleep mode and TTL. And again, you can do that for each one of your groupings. Now, if we go into each one of the individual groups just by selecting our group letter, you will see on the left hand side, it indicates which group we're in. And now we have the individual functions as it pertains to that particular group. And here on this screen as well, we can actually scroll through the different groups and make changes to any one of the units that we wish to. So we'll go back to A. And while we're here, you see that we have our power, which we can go up and down. We can also make micro adjustments instead of going up by full stops. And then across the bottom, we have menu options to be able to change the modes of whatever group that we're working on. So currently we're on manual, but here's where we can change it to sleep mode and TTL. Right next to it is also where we would change whatever sync function we're using. So right now this flash is on high speed sync, but we can change it to first curtain sync and then rear curtain sync as well. Now this area also has a few additional menu items, so we'll scroll across. Here we have our modeling light where we can turn it on and off, as well as our feature to be able to turn on our sound, which I always keep my sound off. I hate that beeping noise every time my flash pops. And then the last item here is our zoom function. So if you're using a FJ80 or FJ80 Mark II, you have the option to be able to change the zoom function on those units. Now from here, if you want to return back to your home screen, you can do so in one of two ways. First, you can press the power button one time, and that'll take you back to your home screen, or just double tap on the crown on the side, and that'll also take you back to your home screen. From here, if we take a look at the top of our screen, you see where it says channel 10. If we swipe down here, this takes you to where your settings are located. Here's where you can change your channel. Remember, we have up to 31 channels to be able to choose from. You can lock your settings. Here is where you would turn on and off the X-Sync. You have their standby feature, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Here you'll select your camera. Of course, I'm a Canon shooter. Our display, which allows us to be able to choose between fractions, what is currently on, and decimals. This is where you would turn on your TTL to manual function. Next, we have our auto on and off. So 15 minutes. Because this is an internal battery and you don't have the option to be able to swap that out, I would definitely suggest turning this on so it reduces your chances of running down the battery. There's also sleep mode, so 1 minute, 5 minutes, and 15 minutes before the unit goes to sleep. You have your screen brightness, which I always keep mine on max. You have the option to turn your flashes into sync mode. Here, you have the option to be able to choose whichever language you would like. There's a reset button, and then there's the power button. So if we click on power, you see that we have normal and we have max. Now, the purpose of this function is so that if you're out on location, and let's say you're a little bit of a distance away from your flash, and you want to be sure that your trigger and the flash can talk to one another seamlessly, then you would change this over to max mode to give you an extra boost in the signal range for your trigger to talk to your flash. So real quick, I actually want to go back up to standby mode. So if we look at standby mode and we turn this feature on, basically what standby mode does is it disables the connection between the flash and your camera. So you know, if you're out on location and you want to get your ambient settings in a particular scene, most of the time, I don't know about you, but I do, I pull my trigger off of the camera so then I can dial in my ambient settings without the output on the back of the screen being affected by the fact that I have a trigger on my camera. Then once I dial in my settings, I slide the trigger back on and then dial in my flash settings. But with the standby feature, if I turn this on, as soon as I dial in my settings, now all I have to do is turn off standby mode and I enable the connection between the trigger and my camera again, and I can get back to work. Now, like I mentioned before, basically this trigger is a little brother to the FJ-X3 trigger. And if we take a side-by-side look at these, you can see that there's a huge size difference between the two units. Now, although the FJ-X3 isn't really that large, sometimes it is kind of a pain in the butt to have this larger size flash on your camera when you're trying to work. So something like the T1 is perfect to, keep in your bag for those types of situations. But personally, because this is an internal only battery, I would suggest either getting multiples of this particular unit or having an X3 to go alongside your T1 while you're working out in the field. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, the T1 is just being released today, and at just over $100, I think that this is a fantastic buy. One, I'm somebody who loves portability. Again, it's super lightweight and it just doesn't take up a lot of real estate on top of my camera. Plus, at that price, I think it's poised for you to be able to have more than one of these units. Again, one, because maybe you shoot with multiple cameras, but also two, since it does only have an internal battery, you don't have the option to be able to swap out batteries. I would definitely suggest having more than one of these units on hand. Now, although I do think that this is great, there are a few things that I would love to see different in maybe a future firmware update. One, I would love to see the ability to reduce the number of groups. Yes, we have 16 groups, but if I'm not using that many groups at once, it would be nice inside of the settings area to select the range of groups that I want to be able to have. So maybe I only want A through E because that's something that I use on a regular. So as I'm scrolling through, I don't have to go all the way to U just to get back around to A. The other thing that would be nice is to have more than just the two groups on screen at one time. I know that this is an extremely small display, and you know, if you wanted something that showed more, then yeah, you can go over to an X3 trigger, but it would be great to have, you know, maybe A, B, and C across the screen at one time, because then you can completely control a 3-light setup, which is typically pretty common, but then you can control a 3-light setup without having to swipe through. But all in all, I'm very excited about this unit. I think it's definitely gonna come in handy as I work out in the field. And if you want to be able to get one of these units for yourself, I have a link down below that will give you a special discount so you can snag yours. Now, if you like this content, please be sure to go down and hit the like button to support the channel and share it with a friend who you think might enjoy this information as well. But that about wraps it up for today's video. Be sure to come back and check out the next one.